I never imagined that a poor girl could bring the millionaire CEO's daughter back to life. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun shone brightly, but it felt like the world had turned dark. A party. That was supposed to be the highlight of my week. I was there because my little brother, Jamie, wanted to see the rich fancy people. I waited outside, my heart pounding, hands trembling. It was loud, terrifying, as laughter and clinking glasses floated into the night. I felt invisible, but I wanted him to have fun. Suddenly, I heard a crash. My breath caught. I rushed inside, nausea twisting my stomach. All eyes were on her, the CEO's daughter, the princess of their world, lying unconscious. My heart raced. I didn't know her, but something inside me shattered. I could see the designer dress, the frilly details soaked in crimson. The gasps. The whispers. Call an ambulance. But no one moved. They stood frozen, their perfect lives shaken like a fragile glass ornament. I felt a surge of something fear. Anger. It pushed me forward, a force driving me to her side. The air thickened with tension. I kneeled beside her, desperately searching for a pulse. Nothing. The heart of $1 million legacy seemed to flicker out. Panic flooded my veins. I didn't know what to do, but I couldn't just sit there. I pressed my palm against her chest, a silent prayer whispering through my lips. The silence was deafening. It seemed to stretch into eternity. An icy chill filled the space between us, and somewhere, the room breathed. My fingertips tingled as I focused hard. Was that a flicker? A heartbeat? I desperately poured every ounce of hope into that moment. I felt all eyes on me, a mixture of skepticism and horror washing over the crowd, then something happened. I swear I saw her eyelids flutter. A flicker of life. My heart leaped. But before I could gasp, the door swung open, sirens wailing. The paramedics flooded in, their shouts mingled with the horror in the room. It felt surreal. The world shifted, and I was swept away. As they whisked her away, my gaze lingered on the crowd. The shock in their eyes. The gasps of disbelief. Questions raced through my mind. What had I just done? If she survived, then what? And why did it feel like more was at play here? A ripple of destiny rippling through the chaos. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The aftermath of that night hung heavily in the air, like a suffocating fog that refused to lift. The rumors spread like wildfire through the glittering circles of privilege and power, each tale more exaggerated than the last. I felt like a ghost wandering through my small town, invisible to the whispers that surrounded me as I passed familiar faces, their eyes averted. Jamie noticed the stares, the knife edge of gossip slicing through our conversations. "Did you really save her?" he asked me one evening, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," I murmured, choking on the weight of his belief. The truth was more bewildering than comforting. The girl I had seen lying there, lifeless, wasn't just a stranger anymore. She was someone who could change everything, or who could break me entirely if it all came crashing down. Days turned into weeks, and still, no word came from the Jenkins family. Occasionally, I would hear her name on the radio or see snippets of news footage featuring somber parents outside the hospital, their faces lined with worry. It gnawed at me, the guilt of my unintended involvement in their tragedy like an unquenchable fire, and then the unthinkable happened. I was walking home from school, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach after a particularly harsh day of taunts and whispers when I saw them. The sleek black car glinted under the midday sun, its dark windows obscuring the weight of its occupants. As it pulled up beside me, that all-too-familiar feeling returned, an unsettling mix of fear and anticipation. The door swung open, and out stepped Mrs. Jenkins. Her once flawless face was now etched with exhaustion, her eyes weary but fierce. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady yet sharp enough to slice through the air. Stammering, I nodded, unsure of what to expect. What could a millionaire CEO's wife want with someone like me? I followed her to the quiet side of the street, away from the prying eyes of onlookers. "I want to thank you," she said, her voice softening, "for being there for Alexis." A flicker of warmth ignited within me, but the unease still coiled tightly around my heart. "Is she okay?" The tremor in my voice surprised me. "Yes, recovering. But it's complicated." She paused, finding the right words. "I can't pretend it was just a fluke. You seem to have some sort of connection with her. Something I never understood." I stared, speechless and bewildered. What was she saying? I had merely been a frightened girl, caught in a moment of chaos. Nothing more. "We want to invite you to the hospital. Alexis would like to see you," she continued, her eyes pleading with a vulnerability I had never expected to find in someone like her. It was a small reprieve, a thread of hope threading between us. "And there's more. What could I possibly offer?" I asked, my voice wavering. "A chance for you, to see a different life. To see what happens when we help each other." Her sincerity wrapped around me, pulling me closer to something I had never considered before, but then that gnawing doubt returned. What would she want from me? "She wants to understand, to know who you are, the person who brought her back." The weight of that statement hit me like a 1,000-pound stone. The thought of facing her, of revealing my raw self, terrified me. But, in the midst of my fear, a seed of something new began to germinate, a flicker of possibility. "Please," Mrs. Jenkins urged, her hands clasped tightly together. "Let us turn this horror into something beautiful. For both of you." I took a deep breath, my pulse racing at the thought of entering their world, the privilege, the light, and the darkness that I was so entirely unprepared for. That night, as I lay in bed, the jangling doubts and worries chased each other in my mind. What would happen at the hospital? What did Alexis really think of what had happened that night? And what if she resented me for being a part of it? But amidst the fears, one question loomed large: was this moment the start of something transformative, or the precursor to greater heartache? The truth was, I was standing on the edge of a precipice, and just below the surface, the unknown awaited. The next morning, I made my way to the hospital, my heart pounding to an erratic beat. I was both terrified and determined, a cocktail of emotions swirling inside me. As I walked through the hospital doors, I caught my reflection in the glass. The girl staring back looked lost, fragile. Yet beneath it all, there was a flicker of resolve. But that flicker began to dim the moment I stepped into her room. The steel walls felt oppressive, the laughter I had heard at the party was replaced by the beeping machines and the whispering hush of nurses. Standing at Alexis's bedside, I was struck by how fragile she looked, even unconscious. Before I could gather my thoughts, her eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes that flickered with confusion and recognition. "Who are you?" she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper, heavy with the weight of unspoken questions. And just like that, my heart sank further into the unknown, for in that moment, I realized the journey had only just begun. As I stood at Alexis's bedside, the sterile scent of antiseptic clung to the air like an unwelcome guest. I felt as if I were intruding in a sacred space, my breath caught in the tight grip of anxiety. The recent past replayed itself in my mind, the chaotic scene from the night of the party, the haunting look in her eyes, and the inexplicable bond that had formed between us in those fleeting moments. Now, with her gaze locking onto mine, those memories danced dangerously close to the surface, threatening to engulf me. "Who are you?" she repeated, her voice a fragile murmur. "I am Harper," I managed to say, my heart racing. The name felt foreign in this context, like a mask I struggled to wear. I remembered the night only too vividly, how I had pulled her from the ground, how her life teetered on the precipice of oblivion. She blinked, and for an instant, I thought I saw understanding dawning in her eyes. "Harper," she whispered, as if savoring it, as though my name carried weight in this fractured reality. "You were there." I was. How cruelly simple it seemed to utter those words. I wanted to reach out, to grasp her hand and convey everything I felt, but I worried that my touch might shatter whatever fragile thread connected us. "Thank you," she said, though her expression was still wrapped in uncertainty, the shadow of confusion clouding her features. It wasn't gratitude alone, it was laced with an unspoken question that hung between us like mist. What did this mean, for her, for us? The sterile environment felt stifling, and I struggled to keep my emotions at bay. No longer standing on a precipice, I felt as if I were tumbling down an abyss with no clear path in sight. "What happened to me?" Alexis asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I can't remember." I hesitated, the burden of truth heavy on my tongue. You had an accident. But you're okay now." My words felt insufficient against the weight of her plight. "You saved me," she said again, more sure this time. "Why?" I shrugged, partly dismissively. "I just did what anyone would do." But deep inside, I knew it was more complex than that. I wasn't just a bystander, I was a participant in something bigger than myself, caught in the tides of fate and sorrow. Alexis's gaze deepened, her expression shifting as if she were beginning to peel back the layers of my involvement. "You sound uncertain," she noted. "Did you want to save me, or?" Her question cut through the haze, and for a moment, I couldn't find the words. I felt panic rising within, a raw tempest of conflicting emotions. If I admitted my fear of what it truly meant to save her, to bind our lives together in this spiraling tragedy, would she see me as the lost girl I was, or as someone worthy of her time? "I just wanted to help," I finally said, the words feeling both true and incomplete. We sat in silence, the weight of our shared moment of vulnerability hanging thick in the air. I caught sight of her hospital bracelet, stark against her pale wrist, and it reminded me of everything this moment really entailed. The stories, the rumors, the judgments, everything I feared had the potential to unravel in her gaze. "Why did you come?" she finally asked, breaking the silence that had draped over us. I wanted to know if you were okay," I said, my voice softer. "Mrs. Jenkins, she told me you wanted to see me." Her eyes narrowed slightly, an unexpected flash of annoyance crossing her face. "Did she tell you that she's the one who had me flown here? That I was merely a crumpled mess in the road until she stepped in?" I flinched at her words, realizing that beneath her confusion lingered a deep-rooted frustration at being whisked away from the chaos of her life, forced into a sanitized atmosphere where she had little control. "Alexis," I stumbled over my thoughts, unsure how to address the stark reality of her situation. "I'm sorry. I thought maybe we could make sense of everything together." She regarded me, her eyes flaring with an intensity one hadn't expected. "What if I don't want to?" The question struck like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the space between us. What if she rejected everything I represented, the poor girl snatched from the depths of anonymity who dared to alter the course of her life? Just then, a faint knock echoed through the room. The door creaked open, and her mother stepped in, a controlled smile plastered across her face. "Alexis, the doctor wants to speak with us about your progress," she said, immediately drawing the attention in a different direction, her presence transforming the atmosphere entirely. As she took Alexis's hand, I felt the fragile connection slip through my fingers. The moment was lost to me, drowned out by the well-intentioned intrusion of concern that whispered of familiarity and comfort. I stood in the background, an intruder in a scene of love and warmth, all too acutely aware of the distance that remained between us despite our encounter. As they exchanged shallow pleasantries, I slipped out of the room quietly, retreating to the coolness of the hospital corridor. The walls echoed with laughter and chatter, but I felt entirely removed from it all. I had stepped onto the threshold of her world, hoping to forge a connection, but instead, I had found yet another barrier between who we were. Once outside, I leaned against the wall, my heart heavy with confusion and loss, awaiting the next twist of fate. And that's when I saw him, Jamie, his worried eyes searching for mine. The emotion swallowed me whole as he reached me, urgency etched into his features. "Harper, we need to talk," he said, his voice low and tense. "About what?" I managed, my throat dry as terror rushed through me once more. He looked over his shoulder, guilt and urgency battling across his face as he met my gaze again. "About the night and someone who is searching for you." I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. What did he mean by searching for me? What could possibly lie ahead? An icy twist gripped my stomach as I braced myself for whatever revelation was about to unravel, uncertain of what threads would weave together our fates. As Jamie's words sank in, a shiver passed through me, echoing the fear I had felt since the accident. I struggled to process what he meant, someone searching for me. What could that possibly entail? My heart raced, every thud resonating with a sense of impending doom. "Who is searching for me?" I pressed, urgency tightening my voice. "I can't say just yet," he replied, glancing around us as if ensuring no ears were close enough to listen. "But it's serious, Harper. We need to get out of here." My mind raced. Why would someone be looking for me? The boy stolen by the shadows of my past? Or perhaps someone connected to the whispers surrounding Alexis's accident? What was I getting myself into? "Jamie, I can't just leave." "Alexis needs," I began, but he shook his head, his expression filled with a mix of sympathy and fear. "I understand," he said softly, "but this is about more than just her. You don't know what is happening. Please, trust me." As I stood there battling the turmoil inside me, Jamie's earnest gaze convinced me to heed his warning. A part of me resented the idea of walking away from Alexis, who was fighting her own battles in a bed that felt like a prison. I felt compelled to be her anchor, yet another part of me whispered insistently that my own safety needed to come first. "Okay," I whispered, my voice just a tremor as I made the decision. "Let us go." We slipped through the double doors of the hospital, the metallic scent of antiseptic fading behind us as we stepped into the afternoon sun. The brightness outside struck me, a stark contrast to the dimness of my thoughts. We boarded Jamie's car in silence, my mind racing with unanswered questions. "Where are we going?" I asked as he turned the engine over, the sound grounding me momentarily. "Somewhere safe," he replied, his voice steady, although I caught a flicker of apprehension in his eyes as he glanced at me. "I promise." Traffic crawled along beneath a sky painted in hues of orange and red, and the weight of the unsaid loomed large between us. It felt like we were hurtling towards some unknown precipice where revelations awaited. "Harper," Jamie said suddenly, his gaze flickering to me briefly before returning to the road. "I know you're worried about Alexis, but you have to focus on yourself too. You have a life, you have goals, a future." His words swelled with an unexpected warmth, but they also stung, reminding me of everything I was jeopardizing by being drawn into Alexis's troubled path. "What are you trying to say?" I turned to face him, the vulnerability in my voice surprising us both. "I'm saying you matter, Harper. More than you know," he replied earnestly, his intensity shifting the space between us, igniting a flicker of hope within the darkness. "You can't let this situation pull you down." His sincerity washed over me in waves, yet I felt a swell of doubt rise just as quickly. "And you think I can just turn my back on what is happening? The hospital, the accident, everything she is going through?" Jamie sighed, the weight of understanding passing through his expression. "No, I don't think that. You just need some air. Some distance. And maybe information." "Information?" I parroted, intrigued yet wary. "What do you know?" He hesitated again, clearly grappling with the weight of his secret. "I just know there's more to Alexis's accident than it seems. There are people involved, and it's dangerous. You may have been a part of something without even realizing it." As we drove into the depths of the city, the scenery morphed from the sterile confines of the hospital to vibrant streets marked by life. Each block pulsed with noise and energy, a stark contrast to the stillness echoing in my heart. Dangerous? I echoed, my voice thick with trepidation. Look, Harper, I promise I'll explain everything. But please just trust me for now, he implored, and there was an earnestness in his appeal that pierced through my swirling emotions. I don't know if I can, I whispered, more to myself than to him, the conflicted weight of loyalty to Alexis grappling with my survival instincts. There's a cafe a few blocks from here. Let us get there and regroup, he said decisively. You need something to drink, and we need to figure out our next steps. Just as I nodded, a strange sense of peace enveloped me for a fleeting moment. I knew that this journey might lead to unfolding mysteries, perhaps even perilous truths about Alexis's accident, truths I never knew I needed. But then, through the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of movement that sent icicles racing down my spine. A sleek black car was tailing us, its darkened windows hiding its occupants from view. Jamie, I gasped, gripping the edge of the seat as tension coiled around my heart. I think we're being followed. His gaze snapped to the rearview mirror, and his expression shifted into one of fierce determination. Hold on tight. Fear surged through me as the black car gained ground, the world outside blurring into a flash of color and fear. With every heartbeat, uncertainty twisted tighter around me. Whatever awaited us at this cafe, the darkness was rushing in fast, and the choices we made now could alter the course of our lives forever. As the adrenaline coursed through my veins, Jamie made a sharp turn down a narrow side street, the tires screeching against the pavement. I could feel my heart pounding wildly in my chest, as if the very essence of panic had taken a hold of me. I glanced over my shoulder, the ominous black car now a predator closing in on its prey. Just breathe, Harper. We'll lose them, Jamie urged, his voice steady despite the chaos. But his calm demeanor did little to soothe the storm brewing inside me. We sped through the labyrinth of alleyways, trying to shake off our pursuers. Every turn filled my mind with dark possibilities. What if they were here for me? What if they were trying to silence me, to erase my very existence? Why are they after us? I asked, my voice trembling as we rounded another corner, the black car still following close behind. I don't know. But they've got some connection to Alexis's accident, I can almost guarantee it, Jamie said urgently. We need to reach that cafe. There's someone there who can help. My breath hitched at the thought of being caught or even worse, held hostage. And what if we don't? I pressed, panic lacing my words. What if they don't think like that? He interrupted fiercely. Just stay focused. We need to be smart. As we raced on, I felt the world outside grow more chaotic and alive, pedestrians darting across streets, a bus honking loudly as it passed. It was as if life continued unabated while we spiraled deeper into danger. I was thrust into the jarring juxtaposition of mundane life and our desperate escape, a woman in love with her best friend's crisis, who now found herself running for her life. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jamie jerked the car into a hidden lot behind the cafe. We had just parked when the black car passed by, narrowly missing us. My heart sank, tension still woven tightly within me. Now! He exclaimed, grabbing my hand and pulling me out of the car. We dashed through the back entrance of the cafe, slipping into its warmth while the world outside remained cold and daunting. Inside the dimly lit space, the hum of chatter and the smell of fresh coffee enveloped me, momentarily muffling the fear that gripped my heart. Jamie led us to a secluded corner table, and as he sat down, I could see the tension still etched in his brow. Who are we meeting? I asked, trying to gather the remnants of my composure. A friend, he said, his gaze scanning the cafe. Someone who knows more about what is happening than either of us. Moments felt like hours as we sat waiting, my nervous energy manifesting in the tapping of my fingers against the wooden table. Each sound seemed to amplify the inner dialogue that jittered within my mind. Jamie's presence was a comfort, but the urgency of the situation was too heavy to ignore. Just as I was about to voice my concerns, a figure slid into the seat across from us. A woman in her 30s with strikingly intense green eyes and wild curls, she radiated an air of confidence. "You must be Harper," she said, her voice laced with an accent I couldn't quite place. "Who are you?" I asked, my instinct for caution rising once again. "Names don't matter right now," she replied coolly. "What matters is that you're in danger, and I have information that might help if you're willing to listen." Jamie glanced at me, and I could see the weight of his trust in me resting on his shoulders. "We need to know everything," he urged, his gaze unwavering. The woman leaned in closer, her expression earnest. "Alexis is caught in something far deeper than just an accident. There are people who want to silence her, and you, Harper. You were closer to her than anyone, and you may have heard something without realizing its significance." My heart slammed against my ribcage, confusion quickly morphing into dread. "What do you mean? What could I possibly know? You were at the party, weren't you? The night before the accident?" She pressed that I nodded hesitantly, recalling the laughter and the mundane joy that felt so far removed from the tragedy that had since unfolded. "You saw something, Harper. Something they don't want anyone to remember. If they know you're with Jamie." Before she could finish, the door swung open, and my breath caught in my throat as a familiar face stepped into the cafe. It was Derek, Alexis's ex-boyfriend, a storm brewing in his eyes, every step he took precise and deliberate. "Harper," he called out, his voice laced with an urgency that echoed through the chaotic hum of the cafe. "Run!" Jamie shouted. In that fleeting moment, panic surged again, threading itself through every one of my senses as I turned to sprint. But as I captured Jamie's surprised gaze one last time, all hope drifting away turned into a flurry of questions. Why was Derek here? And what did he know that could change everything? The clatter of cups being set down and the murmur of voices faded into a muted background as I raced towards the exit, the world outside now a blur of shadows and muted colors. Jamie was right behind me, urgency propelling us through the door and into the crisp night air. "Where do we go?" I gasped, my lungs burning as we dashed down the street, away from the cafe's warmth and the sanctuary it briefly provided. "Just keep running," Jamie urged, his own breath labored. Each step felt as though we were being chased not just by Derek, but by unseen forces, by the fears that clung to me like a second skin. That we turned a corner, breathless, and ducked into an alleyway, the darkness swallowing us whole. I leaned against the cool brick wall, my heart pounding so loudly in my ears that I almost missed the way Jamie held my arm gently, reassuringly, as though the frantic chaos surrounding us could smother the connection that crackled like electricity between our fingertips. "Why is Derek here?" I managed, my voice shaky, breaking the silence that had briefly enveloped us. The gravity of his presence loomed over me, and I could not shake the chill that accompanied it. He might know something about what happened to Alexis. Maybe even about who's after us. But I didn't expect him to find us. Jamie's brow furrowed, his mind racing as he calculated our next move. "I don't want to see him," I insisted, a wave of bitterness flooding over me. Derek was the shadow of my past, the echoes of his betrayals were still fresh, mingling with the grief I felt for Alexis. "Listen," Jamie said, his grip tightening on my arm, "sometimes we need to confront the past to deal with the present. We can't let fear control us, Harper." As I stared into his eyes, I saw a flicker of determination, something that ignited a spark of courage within me. I took a deep breath, the air in my lungs feeling heavier, charged with an unmistakable weight, the weight of choice. "Okay. But can we at least find somewhere safe?" I asked, my voice steadier now, reflecting the resolve I felt building within. "Let South go to my place." He began leading us deeper into the labyrinth of the city, each step paving the way toward both safety and confrontation. Pushing through crowds, we stumbled upon a dimly lit bar. Jamie opened the door and ushered me inside. The air was thick with the scent of whiskey and desperation, shadows danced along the walls, and muffled laughter filled the spaces between conversations. "Sit here," Jamie indicated a booth at the back, and I slid in, the plush leather feeling foreign against the tension still crackling in my veins. As he ordered drinks, I leaned back, attempting to gather my thoughts. My heart raced not just from fear, but from the realization that I was no longer merely a bystander. With every choice I made, every risk we took, I was stepping into a narrative that merged danger with the pieces of my own insecurities of what I had secretly longed for, agency. When Jamie returned, his expression had shifted, it was tinged with something that made my heart flutter. "We'll get through this, I promise," he said, sliding a glass towards me. The warmth of his reassurance seeped into my bones, providing a small balm to my frayed nerves. "What if Derek finds us?" I asked quietly, savoring the drink as it flowed down my throat. "He won tea. But if he does, we'll face him together," Jamie said firmly, his eyes penetrating mine, filling the space with a promise that felt protective yet electric. A tense silence enveloped us, shadows flickering across the table like ghosts. I was suddenly engulfed in an unshakable realization that no matter how complicated our lives became, Jamie's loyalty was a glimmering thread weaving us together, and perhaps I was not as alone in this tumultuous unraveling as I had once believed, but as the minutes dragged on, unease began to settle in. I could feel it, the heaviness of expectation that coiled around me, the bristle of anticipation teetering on the edge of something I couldn't quite name. My sister Jamie started, and I could see the conflicted look twist his features. She was involved. Before her accident, she was doing something with Derek. I think he might know more about what really happened. Panic surged again, tightening my throat. "You think he had something to do with it?" "I don't want to jump to conclusions," he said quickly, yet the worry in his eyes told me he already feared the worst. "Then why did he call for me?" The question hung heavily in the air, like a promise that dared to shatter the fragile relief we had found. Before Jamie could respond, the bar door swung open, a gust of cool air swirling inside. My breath hitched as I recognized Derek's silhouette. He was searching, scanning the dimly lit bar with an intensity that sent a shiver racing down my spine. "Harper." His voice sliced through the muffled atmosphere, sharp and desperate. The moment stretched, suffocating under the weight of uncertainty. I instinctively glanced at Jamie, his expression hardening as the threads of our fate tightened, pulling us into a pulse of imminent confrontation, and then, in a moment that felt ripped from the pages of some dark fate, Derek locked eyes with me, an intensity igniting between us, secrets flashing in his gaze that hinted at a truth far more complex than I could have ever anticipated. "Why did you run?" he demanded, a note of desperation creeping into his tone. "Because there's more at stake than you know," I replied, my heart pounding. "And if it's you we're dealing with, we're all in danger." In that fleeting moment, I saw a fissure for just a heartbeat crack open in the armor that encased his demeanor. It opened a glimmer of doubt, a fleeting glimpse into the truth that lay buried beneath the surface. As I prepared to confront the questions swirling like ghosts between us, Jamie squeezed my hand, steadying me. The world around us dimmed, cloaked in mystery, danger, and the haunting possibility that Derek might hold the very key to unraveling the dark web woven around our lives. And yet, in that tethered moment of uncertainty, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to shift once again. The murmurs in the bar faded into a hollow silence as Derek's determined gaze bore down on me. Time suspended, drawing out seconds into what felt like hours as Jamie's grip on my hand tightened, anchoring me amidst the turmoil. "Harper," Derek stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "you can't run from this. Not now." I tried to steel myself against the flood of emotions he stirred within me, betrayal, anger, and an echo of something that felt dangerously close to longing. "What do you want, Derek?" I spat, my voice infused with a mix of defiance and fear. "You have no right to come after me." But beneath the surface of my bravado, doubt flickered like a candle fighting against the darkness. The vulnerability that came from seeing him again twisted my insides, a reminder of how easily past connections could upend the present. "I want to explain. There is something you need to know about Alexis," he said, his eyes flickering towards Jamie, who stood protectively at my side, his entire body tense. "And about the accident. It's not what you think." The weight of his words crashed into me, filling the air with a palpable tension. My heart raced, caught between the urge to flee or lean in closer, to grasp at whatever truth he dangled before me like a lifeline. "Is this some kind of sick game, Derek?" Jamie interjected, his voice low but firm. "Because if it is, I will not let you manipulate her again." "Manipulate?" Derek laughed bitterly, running a hand through his hair, the anguish in his eyes unmistakable. "You think I wanted this? I loved her. I'm trying to protect Harper from the fallout of that night." "Protect me?" My incredulity burst forth, spilling into my words like an erupting volcano. "You're the one who made it all happen. You and your lies." His gaze shifted, revealing a flicker of hurt beneath his defiance. "I was a coward. I messed up. But this is bigger than just what happened to Alexis. There are forces at work that you both don't understand." "What forces?" Jamie pressed, stepping closer to me, as though his presence could shield me from whatever dark truth Derek was promising to reveal. "I can't explain everything here." Derek glanced nervously around the bar, his eyes darting to the other patrons immersed in their own dramas. "But if you let me talk, if you come with me, I might be able to show you what I mean." For a moment, I hesitated while weighing my options. Trusting Derek again felt perilous, the wounds of betrayal still throbbed. Yet, the tantalizing prospect of answers hung heavy in the air, and Jamie's fierce loyalty created a bubble of safety around us. It felt like a moment of reckoning, yet the fear of walking into a trap lingered just beneath the surface. "Harper, don't listen to him," Jamie implored softly, his resolve unwavering. The essence of camaraderie pulsed between us, a reminder that together we were stronger than facing our pasts alone. But another part of me wrestled with the darkness that threatened to consume us. The whirlpool of grief for Alexis and the unending uncertainty about our fates. Could Derek offer the fragments that would lead to answers? "Let us hear him out," I finally said, the words tumbling out before I could take them back. "But we're not going anywhere with him unless we're together." "Fine," Derek said with a heavy sigh, relief mingled with trepidation dancing in his eyes. "Come on, it's safer where I'm taking you." With that, we wove our way past clustered tables and uncertain glances, Jamie's grip unwavering on my hand as we followed Derek into the night. The urban landscape loomed around us, the shadows growing thicker with every step we took, uncertainty clutching my heart like an icy fist. As we approached Derek's car, unease pulsed in the pit of my stomach. "Where are we going?" I asked, outwardly projecting confidence, but inwardly grappling with doubts that nibbled at my resolve. "To a place where we can talk. Just us." He opened the door for me, a gesture that felt oddly formal amid the chaos. As I slid into the back seat, Jamie settled beside me, his presence a fortress I clung to. The minutes of silence stretched taut between us, filled only by the whispered hum of the engine and the escalating tension of what lay ahead. Each passing streetlight illuminated Derek's face, capturing glimmers of stress, conflict, and something resembling sorrow, a truth he had yet to admit. Finally, we pulled up to an abandoned warehouse, the facade crumbling in the dim light. As we stepped out, Jamie and I exchanged uncertain glances, the weight of unspoken thoughts hanging between us like a shroud. "Is this really safe?" Jamie murmured, eyes scanning the area for potential dangers. "It's safer than anywhere else right now," Derek insisted, already moving toward the entrance. With each step, I felt the echo of our past reverberate against the walls, a reminder of how tangled our lives had become. I could almost sense the ghosts of our shared memories lingering, waiting to unveil their secrets, and yet the deeper connection we had forged became a buffer against the storm swirling around us. As we crossed the threshold into the warehouse, the echo of our footsteps bounced off abandoned machinery and forgotten relics. The air was thick with dust and shadows, and unease danced at the edges of my consciousness. "I need you to believe me, Harper," Derek said as we reached a secluded corner bathed in murky light. "Everything I did was to keep you safe. And what you think you know about Alexis, it's just the tip of the iceberg." Just as I opened my mouth to challenge him, a loud crash echoed from the back of the warehouse. A figure stepped forward, cloaked in darkness, their eyes gleaming with malice. "Too slow, Derek," the stranger hissed, voice dripping with venom. My heart stuttered as I recognized the menace that lurked behind the familiarity, an uninvited specter from our past ready to rend apart the fragile scaffolding of trust we built. "Harper, get back!" Jamie shouted, instinctively positioning himself in front of me. The protective energy radiating from him felt both reassuring and terrifying. In that moment, I understood more than the pieces of our past we were about to confront. We now faced a danger that threatened to consume us all. With Derek's secrets poised to surface and this new adversary looming, I realized we were on the brink of uncovering truths that might tear us apart once and for all. And as the distance between us and the revelation narrowed, I couldn't shake the feeling that our journey had just shifted into a horizon fraught with unimaginable peril. The chill of the warehouse crawled beneath my skin, a biting cold that seeped into my bones as tension thickened the air around us. The newcomer stepped fully into the slant of light, revealing a face I'd always hoped I'd never see again: Caleb, the man whose absence had echoed like a void in our lives. As his malicious gaze settled on me, the laughter and warmth of my memories were suddenly eclipsed by dread. "Look who we have here," Caleb scoffed, a cold grin slicing across his face. "The little outcast is back in the spotlight." His voice dripped with contempt, and my heartbeat quickened, a frantic reminder of how unprepared I felt. "Stay away from her." Jamie's voice was a fierce growl, unyielding and protective. He stepped forward, shoving Derek slightly aside, as if ready to confront whatever Caleb intended. With a scoff, Derek moved in front of Jamie, frustration and fear mingling in his expression. "This isn't your fight, Caleb. You don't have to do this." "Don't I?" Caleb chuckled darkly, pacing back and forth, eyes never leaving me. "I've spent far too long in the shadows, and it's time to shine a light on the truth. Especially about Harper. Your truth doesn't matter. Just leave us alone." I managed to blurt out, feeling the walls of my resolve rattling as he mocked the vulnerability lacing my words, but Caleb's focus didn't waver. "Oh, but you need to hear this. It's time you really learn why Alexis died, why everything went to hell." The venom in his voice sent a shiver through me, a haunting reminder of our shared connection. "What do you know about Alexis?" My voice trembled, a mix of fear and anger boiling inside me. Though she was a faded memory, the pain of her loss was all too fresh. He stopped, his posture shifting dramatically. "More than you could ever understand. This wasn't just an accident, Harper. There was a plan, and you were always a part of it." He said the words with a grim finality, as if he relished the devastation they would sow. Derek's eyes widened in alarm, a crack in his facade. "Stop it. You have no right to involve her in this." But Caleb raised a hand, silencing Derek with a glimmer of triumph in his eyes. "This has always been about you two, hasn't it? The perfect love story until it wasn't." And now, he leaned in closer, anticipation flickering in his gaze, "Harper is the final piece of a puzzle that both you and I had a hand in creating." The word struck me like a physical blow. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet, and I desperately grasped Jamie's arm, seeking some semblance of safety. "What are you talking about? You're lying." My voice cracked, but I fought against the tremors of fear coursing through me. "Ask Derek," Caleb said, a gloating smile poised on his lips. "Ask him what he has been hiding. The truth is buried deep, and your naive hearts won't just break, they'll shatter." I turned to Derek, searching his eyes for an explanation, for a sign that any of this was a fabrication. But he faltered, the pain of revelation crashing over his face like a wave. Harper, but whatever he intended to share hung suspended in the air, stifled by the weight of Caleb's presence. The moment felt surreal, caught between two pasts that had thrived on deception and tangled truths, neither of which I fully understood. "Admit it, Harper," Caleb taunted, eyes narrowing, basking in our visible distress. "You think you can outrun your destiny? This is only the beginning. Everyone involved in that night is tied to a greater scheme. You want to live in blissful ignorance?" He leaned closer, his breath chilling against my cheek. You can't. Not anymore. With a sudden flash of courage, I stepped forward, pulling Jamie with me. I refuse to be your pawn, Caleb. Whatever twisted game you think you're playing, it ends here. The tremor in my voice gave away my inner turmoil, but I tried to project strength, to create a barrier against the tempest threatening to engulf us, but Caleb only chuckled darkly, and it was then that I noticed the glimmer of something metallic hidden in his pocket. Oh, sweet Harper. You're more in danger than you realize. Trust me, the game isn't over. It's just begun, he said, revealing a small device that shimmered ominously under the dim light. No. Jamie shouted as he lunged forward, but it was too late. Before we could react, the device emitted a high-pitched whine. A flash of blinding light filled the warehouse, engulfing us completely, as the air thickened around us like fog. In that moment of chaos, time seemed to stretch infinitely, caught between the shadows of the past and the uncertain reality of what lay ahead. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it was gone. The light flickered and dimmed, leaving us disoriented, and as I blinked away the aftereffects, fear rippling through me, Caleb was gone, but in his absence, the ground beneath us quaked with the echoes of truths that were now irrevocably unburied. Harper, are you okay? Jamie's voice broke into my fog, and I turned to him, my heart racing, yet a new panic surged within me. The question of what would come next hung heavy between us like a shroud. I don't know, I whispered, the enormity of our situation crashing over me once more. Secrets and danger lurked in every corner, and all I could feel was Caleb's final words reverberating in the silence. Our lives were about to change in ways we had never imagined. As the last remnants of light faded, the shadows began to weave around us once more, an inescapable reminder that the battle for truth had only just begun. The warehouse felt different now, its corners steeped in an unsettling darkness, the kind that made even the strongest heart hesitate. I turned to Jamie, who searched my face with an intensity that only edged my earlier fears closer to the surface. We need to leave, he urged, his voice barely a whisper, heavy with unspoken urgency. Where could we even go? I replied, shaking slightly as reality clawed at my insides. The image of the device and Caleb's predatory gleam haunted me. He could still be out there. Jamie nodded, tightening his grip on my hand. We won't let him hurt you again. But there were no guarantees in this labyrinth of secrets. The truth Caleb had hinted at clawed at me like a hungry beast, seeking to unravel the fragile thread of hope that had begun to mend within our lives. I looked around, feeling the weight of my past press down, more oppressive than the chills settling into my bones. Derek, I suddenly said, remembering his pleading eyes right before the chaos had swept us into darkness. What did he want you to tell me? My pulse quickened as I faced Jamie, who seemed to bristle at the mention of Derek's name. Let us not focus on him right now, Jamie said, his voice strained. He paused, searching for the words. He's not who you need to think about. But he could hold answers. We need to confront him, I insisted. The lingering fear mixed with an unfamiliar determination. Caleb was right about one thing, there's so much I don't know, and I can't run from it any longer. A flicker of panic flashed in Jamie's eyes. You don't understand how dangerous this is. I couldn't protect you the first time. What if I fail again? Then we fail together, I replied firmly, the warmth of our hands entwined grounding me against the storm of uncertainty swirling around us. After a moment, Jamie exhaled slowly, resignation settling into his features. Fine. But we have to be careful. We turned back toward the entrance, the world outside seeming both familiar and foreign. Each step echoed our unspoken hopes and fears, reverberating through the remnants of a day that had spiraled out of our control. As we stepped into the dim twilight, the weight of secrecy loomed over us like a storm cloud, yet within that darkness, small sparks of hope flared in unexpected places. We passed a small cafe, typically a hub of local gossip and laughter. A few familiar faces, friends lost in the ebb and flow of life, sat sharing steaming cups of coffee. Their laughter cut through the haze of fear like the sun breaking through clouds. For a moment, I allowed the warmth of their connection to seep through me. They were so innocent, so blissfully unaware of the storms that loomed on the horizon. And then the memories came roaring back, each laughter entwined with the echoes of my lost sister, Alexis. I held on to Jamie's hand tighter, feeling the intensity of everything we had endured and how far we still had to go. "Hey, Harper!" one of them called out, waving enthusiastically. "Join us for a quick drink?" I hesitated, still adjusting to the weight of everything that was happening. We can't," I said, my voice catching. The truth loomed larger than life, a reminder of the fragile facade I put up every day. "I get it," she responded, concern replacing her smile. "Just know we're here for you." With a heavy heart, we continued on, the kindness from the cafe patrons lingering like a ray of warmth even as the cold air surrounded us. Jamie led the way to Derek's apartment, our destination shrouded in anxiety. The closer we got, the more my heartbeat quickened, resonating with the trepidation of what lay beyond those closed doors. As we knocked, dread crept in like a thief, stealing the moments of courage I had mustered. When Derek finally opened the door, the concern etched across his features carried the weight of unspoken regret. "Harper, you shouldn't have come here," he stammered, casting a glance at Jamie who stood protectively beside me. "Then you need to stop hiding," I said, bluntly, fueling the fire of my own bewildering emotions. "Caleb told me you knew something important. I want you to tell me the truth." Derek looked pale, caught between the turmoil of what he couldn't reveal and the desire to soothe the pain that his silence had caused. "It's not safe to talk here," he finally muttered, his eyes flicking furtively over his shoulder. "Derek, if Caleb is involved, if he knows something, if there's a connection with Alexis," the words tumbled out in a rush, desperate, hope fire flickering amid the dark corners of uncertainty. "Harper," Derek began, his voice low, almost a plea. "You have no idea what you're getting into." And then it happened, a flash of movement behind Derek, too quick to comprehend. A figure slipped by him, a shadow flickering in the dim light, and before I could react, the door swung shut with a resounding thud. "Wait!" Jamie shouted, lunging toward the door, but it was too late. I felt the ground beneath me pull taut again. Caleb's laughter echoed against the walls that now felt like a prison. "Your little reunion is not quite what it seems, is it? You thought you could run back into the light?" He called from behind the door, and my stomach flip-flopped at the realization, we had walked straight into his trap. "Harper!" Derek called out, desperation marring his voice as another wave of dread washed over me. But Caleb's final words loomed over us like a smog, thickening the air around us. "You think you're the hero in this story? Believe me, my little friend, you're just another player." What had I stepped into? The truth was becoming more tangled, and as despair washed over me, clawing at my resolve, one thing weighed heavily on my heart: the game had shifted, and there was no turning back now. The air in the warehouse was stifling, heavy with anticipation as Caleb's words settled around us like a shroud. Fear coursed through my veins, each heartbeat echoing the dread that twisted in my stomach. Jamie was still beside me, a rock amidst the chaos, but even his unwavering strength felt threatened by the darkness that enfolded us. "What are you talking about?" I managed to force out, my voice trembling as I fought to maintain my composure. "You're insane." Caleb's smirk deepened, a sense of perverse triumph flickering in his eyes as he stepped closer. "Oh, sweet Harper. You have no idea how many threads connect your precious little life to this chaos. The accident, Alexis, even your brother, they're all part of a much larger narrative." I struggled to comprehend his words, the weight of them pressing against my chest, suffocating. He was twisting my reality, painting it with shadows that felt all too familiar yet maddeningly incomprehensible. Behind him, Jamie's posture stiffened, every muscle coiled tight with protective urgency. "Enough with your games, Caleb. What do you want from us?" Jamie spat, stepping forward as if to shield me from whatever darkness lurked in Caleb's heart. Caleb analyzed him, and in that moment, I felt a surge of defiance rise within me. You're not going to manipulate any more lives, I asserted, my gaze locked on Caleb, refusing to be cowed by his malevolence. If you have something to say, say it. But if it's just another winded threat, I'm done playing. His eyes glinted, intrigued by my newfound resolve. You think you can just dismiss me? After all the damage I've seen you two inflict on one another. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, each word dripping with venom. You don't know what it is to be trapped. You don't know the consequences of loyalty. Loyalty? I shot back, my breath quickening. All I've seen from you is betrayal. You think making us afraid will give you power over us? You're wrong. Caleb chuckled, the sound mocking and hollow. Ah, but you're already afraid. You're standing at the edge of a precipice, and all I did was provide a little push into the abyss. A fall can sometimes reveal the truth. In that moment, a flicker of realization ignited in my mind. I had felt the walls closing in since that night, the guilt, the hesitation, the longing to understand. It was time to turn the fear back onto the source, to reclaim the narrative of my own life. Do you think I'm afraid of the truth? I hissed, hatred and defiance dripping from my words. I survived that night when no one else did. And I'll survive whatever you think you can do to us. Caleb leaned back, intrigued. Oh, I'm counting on that. The truth is about to rise to the surface, but it may not be what you expect, Harper. Before any of us could act, Caleb turned and crashed through the back exit, disappearing into the shadows beyond the warehouse. We have to go after him. Jamie shouted, but I held him back, uncertainty rooting me in place. He's trying to draw us out, Jamie. If we chase after him blindly, we play into his hands. He has something planned, and we need to prepare ourselves first. Fear surged, mingling with resolve as we ventured deeper into the murky confines of the warehouse. If there was a shred of truth in what Caleb had said, it meant uncovering the tangled web of secrets surrounding Alexis, the secrets that could either bind us together in redemption or tear everything apart. We need to find Derek, I finally said, my voice steadied with determination. He holds the key. He knows too much. What if we can't trust him? Jamie countered, a protective edge coloring his voice. After everything that has happened, can we even believe will he help us? Trust isn't given by mere words, it's earned through actions, I replied, feeling the weight of destiny bearing down upon me. We need to face the truth, no matter how painful it may be. As we moved toward the exit, I felt the weight of the past pressing on my heart. Alexis's laughter, the warmth of our connection even in the turmoil that had arrived like a silent storm. The third. Into our conflict felt heavier. We crossed each threshold with the heavy burden of choices that had already shaped our fates. When we reached the edge of the warehouse, the cold of the night air hit me like a splash of ice. I paused, glancing at Jamie, who searched my eyes for answers I didn't have. Whatever happens next, Jamie, we'll face it as partners. Together. He nodded, a flicker of hope igniting between us amidst the dim glow of uncertainty around us. Together, he echoed, a promise laced with sincerity. Just as we stepped into the open night, a voice called out from the shadows. Harper. Jamie. It was Derek, his face pale and panicked. You have to listen to me. Caleb's plan is more dangerous than any of us thought. Without hesitation, I stepped forward, heart racing, ready to confront the very man who had once betrayed me. Tell me the truth, Derek. Whatever secrets you've been hiding, spill them now, or I'm done trusting. His gaze flickered between Jamie and me, desperation etched across his features. I didn't want any of this. But Caleb wasn't acting alone, he was driven by greed and vengeance. They want to hurt you both because you're connected to the incident, more than you know. Connected how? Jamie pressed, urgency fueling his voice. What does that even mean? Alexis, she wasn't just an average girl. She was part of something larger, a secret that tied our families together in ways we never imagined. And when she died, it triggered consequences that spiral far beyond any single accident. My heart raced, every beat resonating with the pain of unanswered questions and raw grief. What do you mean? Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I was scared. Scared of losing you both to the very truth I was trying to protect you from. But now it's too late to hide, Derek said, his voice breaking that I felt the swirling mix of resentment and compassion in my chest. We need to face this, or we won't survive whatever Caleb has planned for us. Then we need to act now, Derek said, determination igniting in his eyes. I can lead you to the evidence, the proof of everything Caleb is trying to manipulate. But we'll need to be smart and we'll need to move quickly. Taking a steadying breath, I exchanged a glance with Jamie. The dawn of understanding settled in as realization struck like a bolt of lightning. We were no longer victims, we were determined fighters. Together. As we turned to follow Derek into the unknown, the thrill of what awaited surged through my veins, a potent cocktail of fear and resolve. I had survived too much to turn back now. Alexa's spirit would guide me forward as we embraced the tempest. This was the moment our lives would change forever, and as I stepped into the shadows, leaving behind the remnants of my fear, I whispered a vow to the echoes of my past: I will not let your memory fade. I will fight for the truth. With each stride we took into that night, forged together in defiance, I held tightly to the hope that we could unveil the tangled mess of secrets slowly knitting us together, an unbreakable bond against the darkness lurking just beyond the light. In the end, in a world full of shadows, it was love and truth that would guide us home.